Thanks again for holding the dummy.
So you learned all this from a video game?
Well, in a way. I mean, I played this game called SIFU, and then I watched a bunch of martial arts movies, which then led me
That's
to...
wild. You should tell me more about that.
SIFU first hit consoles in early 2022. It was also released on that platform at the same time, but didn't get a release on Steam until a year later, which is when I finally decided to give it a go. SIFU is a classic revenge tale inspired by action cinema like The Raid, Old Boy, Bruce Lee movies, you know the type. Your character's father is killed at the beginning of the game, you swear your revenge, and many years later you take said revenge. What makes this game unique is its progression system. I believe this would classify as a roguelite. The main campaign consists of 5 stages for you to fight through to reach your ultimate goal. But most players will take a hearty beating at least once in each of these stages. When you're dealt a fatal blow, the charm on your waist will bring you back, but you will age 1 year. And your age persists all the way to the final stage. If you pass age 70, you will permanently die, and you must restart the most recent stage at the age you started it. Each stage is filled with goons and sub-bosses for you to face as you make your way through, ultimately culminating in a boss who had some role in what happened to your father. You'll find branching paths along the way, as well as shortcuts, some of which allow you to essentially skip to the final boss, which can be really good for practice because some of these suckers are hard. The combat is reminiscent of the Batman Arkham games, as you're facing several enemies at a time with parries and dodges, downed enemy attacks, and special takedowns. But SIFU is certainly distinct, if for no other reason than it's just super snappy. As hectic as the Arkham games can get, there's generally a nice, easygoing flow you can get into with them. Enemies will flash blue before they attack you, and you can generally see the attack coming. In SIFU, your foes will not do you these courtesies. They want to kill your ass, and quick. You gotta really pay attention if you want to come out on top. It's kind of like a Souls game in that if you get careless, a lowly grunt can knock you out one-on-one, especially when you're starting out. But you will get better over time, and the progression feels pretty good. There are a couple different trees for you to progress through, one being more permanent than the other. The more permanent one consists of your actual combat abilities and moves. As you gain XP, you can spend it on these skills. You lose them upon passing age 70 and dying, but after you unlock them enough times, you will have them permanently. However, you can also use your XP to acquire certain perks in addition to some other perks that are dependent on your age and level score. You can acquire these perks one at a time via the shrines spread throughout each level, and they only persist so long as you progress the game. If you go back to a prior stage, you will lose the perks you acquired in later stages. In this way, the game incentivizes you to take the long way through each stage to get as many points and find as many shrines as possible to give you more of an edge. But of course, if you're bold enough, you can take those shortcuts and give yourself more of a challenge. But no matter what you do, it will never get easy. I replayed stages many times to unlock more skills, but still found the game quite difficult. I may have even lost my cool a couple times. But the eventual triumph is just so satisfying, especially when you go back through a stage and make your way to the boss at age 25 when before you had only gotten there at age 60. The difficulty curve in this game is a bit strange. It seemed to me that the third stage, the museum, was actually the peak of the difficulty, which is not to say that the last 2 stages were easy, not at all, but in comparison to the museum, they just didn't seem as tough. And it also had my favorite boss. The bosses in this game are all interesting to varying degrees, but Kuroki and Jin Feng definitely stand above the rest. Overall, the combat is pretty satisfying and varied. Once you unlock all the skills, you got a solid selection of techniques to beat goons into submission and look good while doing it. And speaking of looking good, this game looks really good for the most part. The art style is unquestionably striking, and some of the environments in this game are jaw-dropping. The way that Slow Clap uses lighting, composition, and this watercolor-esque art style consistently impressed me as I was playing through the game. I did find the last stage a little less interesting visually compared to the previous ones, but it still looks pretty good. My only gripe with the visuals is the character models. They're just kind of lacking in fidelity and animations when it comes to the cutscenes and the close-ups.
And this leads me to my biggest issue with the game, the story. Conceptually, it's a pretty straightforward revenge tale. In execution, it's a very flat, boring, straightforward revenge tale.
I was unimpressed by the writing and performances for most characters in SIFU. Right from the jump, the antagonist, who you actually play as in the intro, was already hitting me with some pretty weak lines.
Who wants to go first?
And it just never got better. I'm not trying to take a dig at the actors, but it just wasn't compelling. I could see the film inspirations in the cutscenes as they played out. There were some pretty cool camera movements and great visual designs, but the stiffness of the character models and the even stiffer dialogue delivery would often take me out of the experience the devs were trying to create. The music, thankfully, is quite good. An interesting mix of traditional cinematic martial arts music, plus some modern electronic music that both serve to enhance the experience of tossing goons around, or getting your ass handed to you, depending. As for the other aspects of the sound design, I was a bit disappointed.
When it comes to the combat, all the impacts feel soft and dull. I suspect Slowclap was going for a more realistic sound design. Hollywood has led us to believe that punches and kicks have a lot more auditory oomph to them than they actually do.
And I suppose I can understand their position, wanting to be a little more true to life with their combat sounds, but this is a power fantasy video game where you are single-handedly taking on legions of skilled fighters, including some who have supernatural abilities and the power of anime. All I'm saying is I think the game could have benefited from having some punchier sound design to make the combat that much more satisfying. Moving on to Arenas. This was a recent addition coming a year after the initial release as a free update. Upon first glance, it just seems like a repurposing of various rooms from the main campaign in which you're given various challenges to further test your combat skills. And while it can be that at times, there's quite a bit of pomp and circumstance to some of these arenas, with some sequences really going above and beyond to immerse you into the scene. It's impressive stuff. With that said, these arenas became a serious issue for me. This relates to the goals and outfits that were also added post-release. Some of these arena challenges are insanely hard. I think I got pretty good at this game, but I feel like I couldn't get 3 stamps on some of these challenges if the lives of all my loved ones were on the line. And that applies to the goals too. I actually sustained mild injuries playing through the arenas in this game.
While playing through the arenas in SIFU, I sustained mild injuries to my hand, wrist, and even my arm. For weeks I struggled to perform certain tasks with my right hand. I felt aches and pains much of the time. It was my own dumb fault, but you can still donate to me by going to patreon.com/.
This game scarred me emotionally too. I'm no stranger to games that test your patience. I've played all the Souls games after all. But this game pushed me to the edge. I got so damned angry at this game, especially when trying to unlock some of the outfits. I played on the standard difficulty, so perhaps I could have knocked it down to the easy mode, but the disciple mode is presumably the intended experience, and there are certain points where it's almost unbearable. The goal associated with unlocking the drive outfit involves getting through the entire second stage with 1 health bar that does not replenish, with no revives. I cannot overstate how impossible that is, at least to me. I could probably barely beat the stage without dying even with replenishing health. This particular outfit is also part of a paid DLC, so you have to pay money and then punish yourself in the hopes of earning it. Some of the other challenges are more attainable but physically painful to achieve. There's an outfit that requires earning 80 stamps in the arenas, and another requires earning all stamps in a given arena. Neither of those came easily. They have since added more arenas and thus more possible stamps to collect, but they've also added another tier of arenas which are even harder, at least based on what I played. And you can't even see what the outfits look like in the menu until you unlock them. And most of them don't have images online, especially for the female character. Best you can do is play through the arenas until you're randomly given a costume so you can see what it looks like. I have a fair few complaints about this game, but that's only because it comes really close to greatness in many regards. And in some aspects, I think it even achieves greatness. Some of the fights are really epic, and at times you'll find yourself feeling like an untouchable badass. But at the same time, it's easy to find yourself on the wrong side of somebody's fist and get absolutely obliterated.
She can't keep up.
The only thing that really makes me hesitant to recommend SIFU is the actual physical pain I experienced while playing it. But I think it's a good game and it's worth playing. So I would say give it a go. If it gets a little overly tough for you, maybe try the student mode.
Thank you everyone for watching this video on SIFU. Please do share it with a friend. It really helps me out. Also leave a like and a comment and all the good stuff. You know what to do. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one.